Hello everybody and welcome back. Good to talk to all of you again today, and today we are taking a look at the Datamined data for this Tier 7 French battleship, the Lyon. Now do keep in mind that this is of course Datamined stuff, which means that there is a big possibility that everything I talk about here will change by the time this ship makes it onto the live servers. However, as of the moment, based on what we see about the ship, there is a very high chance that this will become one hell of a Tier 7 battleship. First up, of course, let's take a look at her visually, and I think she's a pretty battleship. Nice pretty bow, overall nice lines, but of course that's not really that important, so let's take a look at how she is statistically. First things first, let's take a look at her stock hull, and when she's a stock hull, her HP isn't that good, only 46,000, so that's below even the old Colorado. So HP pool is a bit dicey. But when you're on the stock hull, 18.75 kilometer range, you've got like ridiculous firepower. 16 barrels of 340 millimeters. So that is a lot of firepower. Secondary armament, yeah, you've got some, but we're not really going to talk about it. AA defense, you've got some, but the AA does actually become much more crazy when you get to the B hull. And that's really what we're going to be talking about. Max speed on the stock hull, 25.6 knots. It's alright. Turning radius, 700. We're not really going to talk about the rudder shift time, as this number is not fully correct. Surface detectability range, 15.84. Air detectability, 11.52. But, more importantly, let's look at the ship when you've got her fully decked out. So, on the B hull, 53,400 HP. This is less HP than the currently buffed Colorado, but it's more than the old Colorado. But once you look at the armor profile, you realize that the HP might not be as big of a problem. Maximum firing range, 20.6, so that's very nice firing range. And of course, you have, again, 16 barrels. That's a lot of broadside firepower. Maximum firing range for the secondary armament, 5 kilometers. Again, secondary guns, not really all that significant, as I don't think this battleship really is going to be going for a secondary build. Air defense, quite strong, and we'll look at the numbers in a second. Maximum speed when fully upgraded, 27 knots, which is not bad for a Tier 7 battleship. Turning circle radius, 700 meters. Surface detectability range, again, 15.84. If you run with a concealment expert, you can get this number down a little bit more. Alright, let's take a look at the main battery. And this is where the ship is, where I think she is really scary. First of all, 16 shells in total. 1.8 Sigma, so very, sort of very standard Sigma levels. And if you look at her shells, especially looking at her AP shells for a second, max alpha damage is 9,500. Projectile speed, 780 meters per second, that's the muzzle velocity, and the projectile mass, 585. Krupp of 2,408, which means that the shells are just sort of pretty standard. You don't have very, very sort of soft shells, but you don't have the super hard ones either. I think her penetration is going to be okay. Her lower projectile speed, combined with that shell mass, again, we don't know fully the air drag value, so I'm not going to 100% be able to give you an exact, sort of performance parameter for a shell, but just looking at these numbers, my guess is that she's not going to have the crazy sort of vertical dispersion that the Dunkirk has, which means with the 1.8 Sigma, sort of the French horizontal dispersion and her better vertical dispersion, you're going to be able to see reasonably good blocks of shells. Now you combine that with the fact that you've got 16 of them and the ship begins to feel like a terror. I mean, if you hit like 6 or 7 penetrations out of the 16 shells you fire, that's a 20k salvo right there. So pretty scary in terms of what you're able to accomplish. In terms of her high explosive, well, not all that great. Fire chance is low, 26%. Very, very high speed, high explosive shells, so a little bit of a weird one there. But yeah, not really sure how much you're going to be using that HE, considering you got just so much more AP, and I feel like AP is going to be her thing. Her one weakness when it comes to her guns is her arcs. her arcs are her weakness. If you take a look at it, in order to get all 4 turrets out to the front, you gotta show quite a bit more side. And the same is true when you're trying to shoot to the back. We're required to show quite a bit more side in order to get all of your guns out. Now do keep in mind that even if you only get 2 turrets out, that is still 8. That is still 8 barrels. So that's quite a bit of firepower already. But if you can get all 4 turrets out, I mean, that's phenomenal. 16 guns is just ridiculous. But I don't think she's in as much danger as, you know, it would appear. And that has a lot to do with her armor profile. So taking a look at the armor profile, and here's some notable things. First things first, she does have a 25mm bow. So there is 25mm bow, but you'll notice that there's a whole chunk sort of in the middle that isn't 25mm, because that chunk is 30mm, right? But you also notice something else. You'll notice that, look at that. The entire anti-torpedo bulge is 30mm. What does this mean, you ask? Well, 30mm on the outer bulge area, if shells hit there and you're angled, that is 1 auto bounce check. It's basically like spaced armor. If you remember how spaced armor works, it's like every layer can provide an auto bounce check, and with 30 mils, that's enough to provide it 1 auto bounce check to most of the shells that you're going to be seeing at tier 7, and even tier 8 and 9. I think you're going to be seeing auto bounce checks happen. So that is, you know, pretty well protected already. Then of course you take a look at the other armor. Most times at, you know, tier 7 you have ships where their casement armor is pretty weak. Definitely not the case for the Lyon. She's got an upper chunk of casement armor that's 180mm thick. So yeah, really you're going to be able to overmatch like that bow area, that stern area, but if she's angled in any other kind of way, you're going to just, you're really going to start to struggle there, because 180, look at that. That's 180 on the bow area here, like at the bottom half. So her area of getting overmatched, very, very small. Aside from that 180mm upper casement armor, if you take a look further down, the upper chunk of that belt armor there is a very nice piece. That's 240mm thick, right? And that is the piece that sticks just above the waterline. Then you go further down and you've got 200, and where's the next layer here? There you go. That's actually 300mm is the next piece down. 300mm, and that is the 300mm layer is completely underwater, by the way. So where's the ship's citadel, you ask? Ha! Completely underwater too. In fact, not only does she have that multi-layered shell bounce check, the auto bounce check, she also has turtleback. I kid you not. I'm actually not kidding here. Looking for that turtleback armor here. Ah, there it is. 70mm of turtleback armor, and that turtleback armor is completely underwater by a nice amount too. If you take a look at that, there's the water line. Whoop. There's the water line. There's the turtleback. So it's completely underwater. And finally, behind all that armor protection, then you've got the actual citadel piece, which is, looking for that right now, there it is. You've got these relatively weak inner citadel armor, which is only 22mm, but good luck getting your shells in there. The Lyon, from what I can tell so far, seems to be a pretty well protected battleship, and that pretty good protection combined with that ludicrous level of firepower makes her a scary battleship. Alright, moving on, let's take a look at her air defense, because secondary, okay, fine. I mean, she's got some secondary guns, but I really don't think you're going to be building the ship for secondaries. She's going to be more that sort of flanking, little bit more of those like pop up and just devastate you with firepower kind of ships. It's not one of those things that I would really take into Brawl, although I am pretty confident that if you do happen to get into a close range fight, she is still going to be able to scare other battleships. Her air defense is actually quite good for tier 7 battleship. Shocking, I know. Take a look at the long distance AA. That's not bad numbers. 34 DPS on one set, 49 DPS on the other, 5.2 kilometer range, which if you build for full AA, it's going to get decent range with decent amount of DPS. Then she's got 40mm Bofors, and quite a decent number of them as well, for pretty respectable combined damages, 122 and 64. Again, if you get all the skills and modules, you could be looking at over 200 plus DPS on the medium range. Again, you get the range up to about 5 kilometers. And finally, at close range, you've got 20mm, which, again, pretty close here to, pretty close to about 100 DPS, 99 here. So her AA is no slouch for a tier 7 battleship. In terms of protection against aircraft, just in case she runs into like armor-piercing bombs, again, I'm not really sure 100% how she's going to react to all the armor-piercing dive bombers, but it does look like she does have pretty much multi-layered deck protection, right? So she's got this piece here, these are 12mm pieces. She's got 16mm superstructure. She's got that 25mm piece here, a 30mm piece there. And if you notice in the middle section here, for example, the 25 is actually on top of the 30. So that's all layers of armor, right? She also has this 40mm piece over here on top of the citadel. My feeling is that this battleship should be reasonably well protected against armor-piercing bombs, as she is going to have so many just different layers to mitigate that. So looks like she's going to be pretty well protected against armor-piercing dive bombers. So again, that combined with that strong AA leads me to believe that she is pretty well protected overall. So again, going back to the main battery, the not so good arc might not be such a huge deal, right? If you can sort of just wiggle in, out like that, you get your guns all out, fire, you get into a slightly better auto bounce angle, you should be able to mitigate quite a bit of damage. Her armor is quite tough compared to some of the other ships we've seen in the game so far at tier 7. Whew, so all in all, the Lyon looks like something exciting, but I do think potentially that you are going to see maybe some kind of changes so she's not overpowering. She doesn't have speed boost. This is tier 7. Speed boost really only starts at tier 8, so she just gets the pretty standard damage control party and repair party. No aircraft though, so that could be a bit of a weakness. But other than that, looks like a pretty darn strong battleship that we're going to be seeing in the near future. Anyways, folks, let me know what you think in the comment section below about this tier 7 battleship. Are you looking forward to it now that you've sort of seen her? Yeah, let me know in the comment section. Aside from all that, hope you enjoyed today's video. Take care, have yourselves a good one, and I'll talk to all of you again next time.